and Merry Christmas, everyone. It's only a few days till Christmas. I am with my mother and some of our other family members. I am in her study, and I am very blessed this Christmas season to have a friend of mine from continental Europe up in the north joining me to talk about some very interesting things today. He's been on the channel before. I've been on his channel. His name is Pomen. We'll be talking for between 60 and 90 minutes about hopefully very interesting things. During the course of the stream, I will not be interrupting it to read super chats or paid chats from other locations, but we will review them if there are any at the end. So if you would like to financially support the stream and the work that I do elsewhere, you can do so on PayPal, Cash App, Entropy, Subscribestar, Tips. You can also send rants on Rumble and hyper chats over on Odyssey. So if you'd like to send in anything like that, maybe little questions you might have for my guest, or ideas that you have that you'd like to hear us both discuss for a moment at the end of the stream, go ahead and get those in the next 60 to 70 minutes, and we'll spend the last few minutes of the stream talking about those. So without further ado, I'm going to bring on my good friend Pomen. Welcome back to my channel, Pomen. Good to see you again.
Hello. I'm glad to be back.
Good. It's been quite some time since we've spoken on air, but we've stayed in contact pretty regularly. So I know that you've been busy with work and travel and things. And travel is what led you to us talking about what we're going to talk about today for the bulk of the stream. But before we get to that, let's let all of my viewers know who you are and tell them what they can expect from your content while I share your link in the chat for everyone.
Yes. Well, I am Pomen, that's my nickname, and I do historical and autobiographical videos and documentaries. The documentary, for example, that Yes will be showing is one we did in Lithuania. And we'll be talking about that experience and what I learned a lot from that trip here. And the focus will be then on ethnogenesis, meaning how culture came to be, how people define themselves and who they are, more or less. And the other thing will be on paganism, because I visited a pagan group in Lithuania and saw the insight how it is to be a modern day pagan and all the problems that they have.
Before we get started, is there anything in particular besides your Lithuania video that you'd like to big up on your channel? Because I've watched a lot of really interesting things on your channel.
Yeah. So I've been right now pumping up quite a lot of new content. And one in particular I do want to talk a little bit in length about, because the research I'm doing right now is very interesting. So from the pagan and the ethnogenesis focus, it always leads to the next thing very easily. So I did a research on a person that is not known much in the West, not even actually in Germany, because he's kind of removed. His name is Hugo Hopner, nicknamed Fidus. He's an artist from what was it, 1900s Germany, right? It's 1880 up to 1845 around. He was very active, and he was one of the biggest artists in Germany during the 1800s and 1810s, and he's completely forgotten about. So the question is why? Well, 2 wars, that's why. But what interested me about him and what I did, so I did a video quickly researching him, sort of the small things I could find, because it's not much. And I thought I'm happy, I'm done. Woo. Let's move on to the next thing. But then I got a question, and then I got another question. And all these questions are very leading. And so I looked into them, and they just got bigger and bigger and bigger. So, for example, Fidus supports something called, what's it in German? Land reform, Lebensreform, which is sort of a revolt against modernism. European modernism started around 1850s usually, or 1810s, depending exactly where you want to define it as, but 1850 usually. So it was a rebellion against the more materialistic, the more industrialized society, and they wanted to return to nature. A lot of the focus was, for Fidus, was also nudity. The body, the pure body is beautiful. The German body is beautiful. Let's show it. But
I agree.
But the thing is, you think, is this about sex or something? No. It's just the body is beautiful. It's not erotic. It's aesthetic. And this was big up till I would say World War One. It was a little bit after the fact too, but 1882, World War One, about in Germany. And Fidus was very famous during this era. A lot of his paintings were of, for example, a strong, beautiful man standing naked, but not showing his dick, in front of the sun and just, enjoying it.
It's very aesthetic, very, very in tune with the natural order of things. Yeah.
The entire point of it is that us as human are beautiful. And, saw that. Interesting. Okay. But then it was like, oh, yeah, but it got a revival in the 60s in America. And I saw a little comment saying, oh, yeah, I forgot the names of the artists, but they're not really that relevant. And I thought, okay, well, how? So, these artists in the 60s in America was influenced by them. How and why? The how, that is the interesting part.
And that's what your next project's going to be about?
Yes, it's going to be how, let's say, the German immigrants from before World War One came to America, brought this Lebensreform to America. It got very popular in California because, there's a song by Nat King Cole called Nature Boy that sings about one of these first German immigrants and how weird he was. Like, here's a very wise German man, half naked in front of me. He's very wise. So you sing about him. That became the hippie movement in America.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So it's Nature Boy, and he started, Nature Boy, but I forgot his name now. And more people joined him, more immigrants came from Germany, started a group in California, started shops in California. And then the Anglos, the Americans started to love it and started to create their own thing around it. Then completely scrubbing the German stuff away and making it an American thing.
So it can turn a profit.
Yeah, the hippies definitely turned a profit too. It was a very economic thing. But it wasn't just seeing that influence and seeing how everything is very connected between each other. It's so fascinating.
Oh, yeah. So, that's one of the things I like about your channel in general is not only do you show me interesting things or people from history that I wouldn't have otherwise heard of, the way that you link it to things of modernity or link it to other important movements or wars or whatever. It's very interesting the way that you present things. And I highly recommend that you guys look at his channel. Speaking of his channel, let's take a look at it here real quick.
Yeah, understanding. That's a good video right there.
Oh yeah, there we go. There's me. Yeah, here's the For You. I personally hate the For You tab.
It's weird. Yeah.
I wish there was a way to get rid of it. I couldn't find a way to get rid of it on my channel. I don't know.
No, it's a new thing. So what I did before the For You, I have like playlist up top of what I want people to see the most. But the For You is kind of mixed. I mean, I have mixed opinions about it, I would say.
The videos that we'll be talking about mostly today are these here. Let's go ahead and embiggen so everyone can see. There we go. We are going to be talking about these two videos here. Yes. So, Pomen, would you like to start with this?
Yeah, we can absolutely start with this. This actually goes further back, fascinatingly enough. So if you scroll down a little bit further, you're going to see another video. See if it's decently live. There it is. Vidunas. Oh, there it is on the left. So at this point, I was very, how can I say it, drained. I lived, so what happened was I moved to the city. And the city ain't fun. It was draining. It was stressful. My creative juices disappeared. So I created maybe a video every 4 or 6 months if I had energy to do anything. But that one, Vidunas, was sort of like, okay, this is very fascinating history. Even though I'm drained, I'm going to push it. It's not a good video, in my personal opinion. I'm not proud of it.
Okay.
But what it led to. Whew. So, bit of backstory of who that guy is. He is, in the 1920s in Lithuania, they got independence from the Russian Empire. And they had to identify themselves. Like, who are we as an independent Lithuanian state? So there were a few different people, one being Vidunas, others being, um, Lithuanian's last name. No, I can't do Lithuanian last names. They're like normal, and then they go in the end. It's impossible.
Well, you'd probably be able to say them better than I can, so I'm not even going to try.
Jonas Bisinavicius is his name. This is another big figure in the 1920s in Lithuania. Okay. So what Vidunas in particular was, he was something called a Prussian Lithuanian. It's not many of them. There was about 150,000 of them during the time of 1920. They lived mostly in the western provinces, such as Memel, modern-day Klaipeda, and in the Prussian regions, so near Königsgrad, or now Kaliningrad, as it's called today. Mm-hmm. And looking at his life, looking at how he tried to push up the Prussian Lithuanian culture, write about it. He was a journalist in the beginning stages. So he wrote a lot. He was part of a newspaper who also had an archive writing about history. Yeah, that archive burnt down, and big chunk of their history in a fire.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah, but they're still alive. At that point, they're still alive. You can do it. But yeah, so he lost his job. I mean, not much he could do. So he decided to go to Germany, study, and came back, and yada yada yada. Became a very important figure though. So when he came back, he started doing music, poetry, writing about Prussian Lithuanians, writing about Lithuania, talking about how it's important for Lithuanians to find the essence of who they are. And very influential, sort of halfly forgotten for most Lithuanians today, because it's mostly text, while the other guy, Jonas Bisinavicius, was political. So it's like, where's the focus? Well, the focus is on usually the political, the front man. The writers usually get pushed to the side, or to anybody who's more nerdy. But he's very influential. But he also created a pagan revival group in the 1920s called Remuva. And the idea was just to find what the Lithuanian is by going back in time. About 1,000 years ago is when they became Christian. So the pagan culture and the pagan spirit is still there. So they wanted to go back to it. It didn't mean that they hated Christians. He actually said he wants no conflict at all with Christians. This is just an exploration of who a Lithuanian is. And then World War II happened. Lithuania got annexed. Prussian Lithuanians became sort of the in-between when and then the Germans attacked the Soviet Union. Many Lithuanians obviously wanted independence, so they fought against the Bolsheviks. And as a revenge, when the Soviets came back, he killed all of them. They didn't flee to Berlin. A few did, but 150,000 dead. There is more or less no Prussian Lithuanian group left. There's a few with they fled to Germany who are still alive, but I wouldn't call them at this point they're more German than they're Lithuanian. So yeah, they're dead.
It's sad what the horrors of those wars did to all of us, yeah. especially the groups that are no longer around, because, well, an ugly, horrible war that never needed to happen.
Yeah, so seeing that, I felt like I had to talk about it, because it was he's a beautiful man, beautiful things that he did, and for it all first to burn down, and then to literally be erased.
That's very sad and tragic.
Yeah. So yeah, but he lived in Germany last part of his life, and not much happened. It defeated. So I did that video, again, mixed about how I told the story. But the thing is, it's a very hard story to tell. I can tell it like this. This is more beautiful. But, I need to sell it. Like this is the issue with sort of YouTube things, or anything with telling a story. You always have to add a little bit to it. Not
you have
clear.
To market it.
You market it, exactly.
Right.
But I posted the video. I wasn't super happy about it. It didn't get too many views. But what I did do is the group Remuva, as that he created in the 1920s, they're still alive today. They still exist. So I thought, you know what? Let's research this a bit more. I did. I understood what they were a little bit. Oh yeah, they're actually very active. 5,000 members. They're doing really well in Lithuania. They are. Let's send an email. Let's just, out of the whim, let's send an email. Let's see what happens. So I sent email with the description. I think I translated, Google Translate Lithuanian as well. I think I did. And then the video to the high priestess, the leader of the group. She didn't reply. She doesn't speak English, but she made another person reply.
Okay.
And he invited us to come. Yeah, for Yor. Yor is the spring festival that they have, welcoming spring. It's a common thing with all Scandinavia. We usually have something to welcome spring. And there was some mixed up. We got the wrong dates, so we didn't actually see the main festival.
I remember that from the video.
Yeah, no, that was really annoying. 1 week before the actual date we were supposed to be there, they said, "Oh no, we gave you the wrong." Like, "Oh no, we were supposed to be here on the weekend, not during." It was, I think they gave it the 26th to 28th, which was Tuesday to Thursday, the main festival. So we came there during that time. I was like, "Oh no, it's on the weekend." I thought that was clear that we can't do things on the weekdays.
Oh no!
But you gave me exact dates. And yet it's like, "No, it's just expected." It's like, okay. We learned this a lot dealing with Lithuanians. They're really bad at planning.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, regardless, we got there obviously when we booked the tickets a month in advance. Spent a lot of time around Lithuania, saw the war museums, saw things like that. Very beautiful. It's all in the documentary. Talking a lot about the National Revival era in the 1920s. And then, like, there's a lot, but I'll talk about details after I just describe everything.
Okay.
And then on the Friday, we came there, like midday. We had to leave on Saturday. So we thought, well, we are here anyways. We got to see something. And such welcoming people. So we like I said, we came there at, I think it was 2. No one was there. No one. Like, was one woman saying, "Oh, hi, what are you doing here?" It's like, like, you come later or come tomorrow. What are you doing here so early? It's like, yeah, I mean, we have to be here. And we were invited, right? But luckily, a guy that was with us is also Lithuanian, so he could show us around. He showed us some of the there's a very old city that was up top of a hill, like one very, 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 it doesn't exist anymore. It's just forest, but one of the first Lithuanian cities. When I say cities, it's not big. Like, it's, it's a fortress of like 1,000 people. That's a city back in the day. But so we had some time and walked around. But luckily, there's a little house, and I saw a guy walking in the window. So let's knock. Yeah, and there they were. There were sort of second in commanders in there. So he, we didn't expect you now. Okay, come in, sit on the table. Here, have some food. Here, have some meat. Here, have some food. Here, have some food.
I remember you telling me that you had a great time because of how friendly and charming the people there were.
Absolutely loving people. Like I was sort of sitting there, like, okay, thank you. I wasn't expecting it. We both were a bit flabbergasted by the welcoming, because I thought first that they would be annoyed, but no. It's like, sit and have food.
Sounds like what happens when you come to visit where I live in Appalachia.
No, so it was so lovely. And we sat there from like, I think 6 o'clock to midnight, because a few of the other guys came at midnight. And some of the stuff we talked about there was more private, but it was such a lovely, lovely time. And then at around midnight time, the more like young men, pagans, came. We traveled a bit far. That's why they were so late. And we walked. They first got acquainted and said hi to everybody. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, we walked around in the forest. Just walked around. It was so beautiful. Like, no lights, no flashlights.
I enjoy dark forest walks. It's a lot of fun.
Just the moons. Like, incredibly, incredibly beautiful. So, and then the day after, we saw beginning parts of the ritual. We got shown quite a lot. We saw baptism, actually, from pagan baptism from start to finish.
Oh, will you tell us about that experience and what that was like?
It like I filmed it all, but I'm not going to show. It's private use because I can't show a child's a man's child. It's wrong. But it was very similar to Christian religion set and set with water. But a lot of it was wheat. It was quite magical. About 45 minutes an hour. Oh, the music. Oh. So they had the priest they had during the baptism. He was also a musician, a singer. So he sang. So like the song could be like Rimo Rimo Tuto Rimo Rimo Tuto Rimo Tuto, and then everybody, like imagine like 50 people singing that in like unison. Even I started singing. It was a very magical feeling. Oh my gosh, so lovely. But I was filming, so I was like holding the camera like a bit from while Paul was here, and it's just like I gotta film. And there was a photographer there getting angry at me because it doesn't look good that I'm having another camera there. But no, it was very lovely. The other people who were with us also got a bit of an explanation during the time, but I was a bit further away filming, so I didn't see it. I didn't hear it because everything has something to do with, for example, seasons. So you had to walk around the fire, and every that's a year. So it's like everything represents something of the child's life. And they did another thing which was very interesting. They had a clay. What was it? A clay object. I forgot what it was that they had to break. And the point of that was it's an older Lithuanian ritual that if you can destroy something, if you can give something up like clay, which is a bit more expensive, it means you are wealthy enough to take care of the child because you can afford to break things.
I see. Okay.
So again, very lovely. And then the last thing we did before we had to leave was there were two, we call it not role players, but they were soldiers. They were literal soldiers in the army, but they were also playing like medieval fights with chainmail and everything. And one of us my partner had to then dress up in chainmail and try to get stabbed with a sword.
I bet that was fun.
Yeah. It's actually something you can show to the audience if you wish.
Certainly. Do you have a timestamp for it?
Yes, I do.
I'm born in Lithuania.
That is a very important Lithuanian woman who actually came up with the Indo-European theory of the Kurgan theory, which
I found it. Chainmail and sword fun. There it is.
Yes.
All right. Give me just a second and we'll pull that back up. There we go.
It's an independently new country.
Oh, but basically,
what is that?
Chainmail, and this type of armor is also reappearing right now with the riot police. Because you cannot pierce it with a knife.
Oh, so it's
For example, I will show you. To go straight through with a screwdriver, but with a knife, no.
Oh, interesting.
So
yeah,
of course.
Let me pause it just a moment here.
Yeah, it's a bit laggy for our side.
Yeah. Unfortunately, at my mother's house, we don't have good internet.
Okay.
Let me drop the resolution and see if it will play better. Give me just a moment. Let's see if this will play the low resolution.
You will get about at some point. Okay.
But then the cotton armor underneath.
Let's see.
You might have Under Armour, so.
And see,
it doesn't even
my
pierce
whole body weight,
and it's not piercing it. But you're saying a screwdriver, it just go through it.
Yes. For example, they use special daggers, you might say. They're called stilettos, you know?
Yeah,
it's like a blade is triangle basically, and it wouldn't go full plate, but goes through gaps, and gaps are protected by chainmail. It also goes through the chainmail.
So when they were using plate armor, then presumably they'd have this underneath it as well as the cotton armor.
Might be the full shirt, or might be only places which are
like the curious.
soon on the gamba zone.
Yeah.
For example, like.
Because in armour they said it's like
what
they
you
said
always
like
have
under,
to keep in
like around
mind,
the legs.
but that back then, such things and standardization did not exist.
Yeah, you can.
Let's see, people right now, for many years, try to put swords in the categories.
Yeah.
At the same time, this task is futile because each sword, knowing what was the worth of a sword, which is basically immense, they were extremely expensive, was made for each person accordingly.
So for instance, like a different person would have a different length sword in effect,
exactly.
or subtly different. So
Yeah.
it's all the bigger.
Well, of course, we're talking about our ages from 10th to 12th century that we're reenacting. So basically, this is how a normal, very wealthy warrior would have looked like now.
But the cost of iron was dearer than gold. Back in the day, iron was more expensive than gold.
Right, we need to start.
Might be, so they were saying like it was technically like a sword, and so in my part of the world,
That's about
we used to use really short swords because we were poor. We could only afford like almost like a gladius compared to something like this. So like say a double-handed long sword.
All right, Richard.
All right, you can.
Is it time to go now?
Soon.
Sorry,
very soon.
No, cheers, seriously, guys.
Yeah,
thanks
genuinely.
Like again, they were so welcome, and this was kind of random as well because we were about to leave. Like we were on a hurry to leave because it was a bus that would take us to the train to the airport. And right when we were like packing, they were like, "Oh no, we have to show you something. Put this on his chainmail. Like, let's do this." And very welcoming, very nice people to us, which again was a bit of a shock. Like it was a risk. It was absolutely a risk, but no, people are very like. It's so fascinating. Like just an experience like that can start from a very small thing by just talking about somebody's history.
Yeah.
And during the entire time we were in Lithuania as well, we described to people we're doing a documentary talking about your history, like talking about who is a Lithuanian. And everybody was like, "Oh, thank you. Yes, we need more people talking about it." Because it's not talked about so much anymore. Like who you are, like history-wise, isn't talked about much. And it's genuinely very sad.
Well, is there anything else you'd like me to sample from the video before we move to talking about ethnogenesis and paganism in general from the experiences that you've had?
I think also with the quality of the stream there.
I'm sorry, again, it's nothing I can do about it. If I could purchase better internet here, I would, but I can't.
It's all fine. Don't worry about it. But then the audience have something to go and watch.
That's true, they do, which you should all go watch. I'm going to share the link in the chat right now. Again, here is the link to the video, everybody. You should definitely watch this and check it out when you can.
Yes, there's a lot of history we go through, a lot of prehistory. Because, I mean, ethnogenesis focuses much more on the written history than now. So it's like let's say, last 500 years. For Appalachian culture, would be like when the first Appalachian came there. Mm-hmm. But we still try to focus on who they are from the beginning up, because everything is connected, especially when talking about paganism, because it goes back even like very far. And in specific with Lithuanians and Latvians is very small amount of Indo-European influence, because they're forest people. So I could say this, like the entirety of Europe was either a tundra or a forest back in the day. A lot of food for the first people coming there, obviously. Big mammoths, big food. You have to just kill a big guy, have food for an entire year there. Like mammoth meat, yum, 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 yum. Yeah, but, they died and went further up. But the people came, the Baltic hunter-gatherers, so a bit of unique. You could stay there, they can create their own culture. The first people that came there used the forest to their advantage. A lot of the spirituality in the forest could stay. A lot of pagan places. So when the Anatolian farmer came along, we say about 1 kilometer a year they moved. They burnt down the forest to grow seeds and replaced the majority of the hunter-gatherer culture in Europe, except in Lithuania, Latvia, and things like that. There's a few other places who they didn't conquer.
So the ethnic culture that you got to study is a remnant of one of the oldest and most genuine European indigenous people.
Yes, 100%.
I bet that was beautiful to get to be among them and talk to them, wasn't it?
Yes, it is. And like, it's a lot of unique things. For example, the blue eyes. That's a hunter-gatherer trait. Most likely came from one guy with a mutation, and then that one guy's children. So everybody so the joke is saying is everybody has blue eyes are related to one another. From one man with his blue eyes. And same thing with green. Green is also a mutation of blue. So we told that story to them quite a lot about their blue eyes, the unique connection to hunter-gatherers, their unique connection with the forest, and they loved it. And the funny thing is as well, like Lithuanians have a little bit more. Latvians don't. They barely have any hunter-gatherer Indo-European influence. So when the Yamna Indo-European went westwards, they mostly just also went along farms because it was easy. Everything was, the forests were burnt down. There were some sort of road system. Like they had horses, they'd be fine. But at least there's some sort of infrastructure.
But the peoples that lived deep in the woods were mostly left alone.
Yes. Lithuanians were a little bit different. Latvians, not at all. They didn't interact with the Indo-Europeans at all. So their paganism is a little bit more, but it's such a small, minute thing. But what the Lithuanians did was they invited them over. Instead of being conquered by them, they were never in conflict. They said, hey, you guys got like magic, more or less. Like the things that they have, like they have strong meat, like strong bear, 40% meat. You can get drunk from that. Versus the farmers who had like weak little percentage beer, no one likes. So it's like, okay, you got better weapons, you got meat, you got a lot of technology that's magic for us. What about we give you some stuff? You come here, a few of you, you teach us this, and we help you. No conflict needed. And no conflict. They came. It was a bit of an elite replacement, as it's called. They were put into higher echelon because of the technology, and they cooperated. That's the only Yamnayan influence. Now that's interesting again because a majority of other people were conquered, not them. Yeah. They were not weak. Again, I mean, Lithuanians. I say Lithuanians because they're closer to farmers. When the farmers came and wanted to destroy their forest, they go, not here. And same thing when in Nayak, and like big, strong magic men came along. Same thing, not here. You're not fighting us. We will win. It's fascinating, and you see this a lot in the Lithuanian people. They have a spirit to them.
That's beautiful.
Quite amazing.
I would love to go and visit them one day. That would be fun.
It's so beautiful. Like
I've talked to people who have traveled before to the forests of old Europe, and they say that it's very similar in topography to where I live here in the mountains in Appalachia. They say that I would enjoy it because it's a very similar type of biome. And maybe that's because I have, ancient European roots and my genetics, my biospirit calls for that kind of forest.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Definitely. I mean, that's an interesting part that actually is curious about European. If certain groups actually went to different areas depending on the cult, like the nature, like Appalachian, who exactly are they? That's a good question.
Well, the Appalachians that I know were the Ulster Scots and the English of the colonial era that moved to start settling and expanding out from the colonial, I guess you could say, colonial resource extraction process. The people who wanted to move out and branch out and explore and settle or conquer the wilderness, those are where all of the Appalachian people come from. You could draw an oval, maybe a few hundred miles north and south. West Virginia, Western Virginia, the western tip of the Carolinas, and the eastern tip of Tennessee, with the sliver of Kentucky that runs through what they called for years coal mining country. And the few million of us that live in these really difficult to manage rocky hill forested areas that most other people don't want to live in, we have a very continuous family clan line. I can
Nice.
trace my ancestors back to the early 1800s on multiple sides of the family. And
Yes.
many people who live here still can do that. Most Americans can't do that if you're not aware.
Yeah,
So,
no, I'm very aware of it, and that's
Okay.
so important.
Yeah.
Like I talk about this, like
and
keep that
the-
alive.
Mhm. And so it's when you are an Appalachian,
Mhm.
you are taught from being very young. I was taught about the great things that people in my family line did, the family feuds we had with other families, the way that we were able to make peace between them. And you're
Yeah.
taught about dozens of names, the things that your family have done before the American, the ugly American War that they incorrectly called the Civil War. It was a secession war. It was a war for Southern independence. People on my family fought for both sides of that war reluctantly because our people didn't want to go to war with each other over that crap.
Yep.
But
Yep.
many of us, like I said earlier before the stream, we're a very spirited people and we like to fight and we like to explore. So in Appalachia here, it's very common for family members, men and women, to sort their problems out by wrestling and fighting, or for people to issue kind of like an honor challenge, but they'll issue a challenge of, I bet I can outshoot you, or I can shoot more squirrels than you can. We'll meet
Nice.
Sunday morning with our shotguns and we'll go see who can shoot more squirrels before church, like that kind of thing. So the ethnogenesis here, I think that spirit comes from the founding stock, so to speak, of the little region that I'm from, or from the toughest explorers and the most spirited conquerors and fighters
Nice.
that were willing to go into the mountains and fight the wildlife and live in the harshest place that there was at the time in the colonial period. And so when you talk about the loving, kind, accepting, interesting nature of the Lithuanian people talking to the Indo-Europeans when they came through and being like, hey, you guys are interesting. That reminded me of our fighting spirit here in Appalachia, where we want to go out into the wilderness and prove that we can fight, that we can live in it, we can fight the beasts of nature, and that we can survive where other people can't. That's a powerful thing in my ethnicity, and that's what I thought of when you talked about that.
Oh yeah, they're the same. They're definitely the same. Like the big reason why the farmers also didn't go. I mean, they were fighting, but it's a lot of swamp, so it's mostly forests and swamps. Not great for farmers. No, but also with Lithuanians, yeah, they always been fighters. Like the partisans in the World War II fighting as well. Like everybody's fighting. Speaking of that, there's a lot of not negatives. I won't call it negatives, but like bad, like how can I say, bad experiences we got being Lithuania as well. Like again, Pagans all great, but we heard a lot of stuff again. So we went actually back to Lithuania in summer because again, I love that place. It's beautiful people and like, everything. I love it. It's like it's not like an issue with a lot of like I love my own country obviously, but I also have a lot of criticisms. But mostly
I'm American. I have mostly only criticisms for my country.
Yeah. A lot of it is like not like post-modernity hitting, like the identitarianism.
Okay.
You know, all the Western issue with immigrant. You mentioned that stuff. I don't see as much there, and this is the most with Eastern states. This is why a lot of people go, "Oh, I love the East." Yeah, they were under Soviet occupation, so they're a bit different, but they're still beautiful. Like they a lot of what I found beautiful about that is they had the most materialistic, like, destructive assholes as overlords, and yet they're here, and yet they survived, and yet they kept.
And I think my people will survive the fall of the American Empire too.
Definitely.
I think we will.
Definitely. Like I like if I could go 100 years in the future, I kind of want to see how America would look like.
Yeah, me too. I'd like to see who wins.
Yeah, me too. But obviously, we
talked about before stream, because those of you that listen to my streams regularly know that a couple months ago, about 5 weeks ago, my favorite cousin had her first child, and when we did a head count between all of us cousins and our children, there are 25 of us now, and it's very common here for people to still have 4 and 5 or even more children.
Good.
And we know each other. we celebrate together, we share religion, we share culture, we share family, we share property together. And I think that it's very, very difficult for an evil government to take that away from people.
They will
So I
try.
think that with
They will try.
if you can take away anything from the type of videos that I do, remember that the people that the future belongs to are those who create culture and create other people
Yes.
that will
Yes.
inherit that culture. So those of us who live rural and we're creating lots of kids and we're creating big family groups and communities,
Yes.
we're going to outlast those evil empires.
Yes.
You can take that to the bank because we always do.
No, yeah, no, 100%. Like nothing lasts forever. It's always
Yeah.
like you gotta wait, but obviously it's not fun. You're seeing things crash around you. You like a lot of again. I mean, as I said before stream as well. I've been in a lot of political things. A lot of misguided young men also come to me like, "Oh, we want to fight." I understand. I understand the fighting, and I in a sense, I wish we could just, but you can't.
But you
And
can't. Right.
No.
That was a hard pill for me to swallow because when I was younger and didn't know the things I know now, I was a very passionate American patriot.
Mm.
And when I started realizing that my own government and even my own identity was part of the enemy, you can't fight that really. Like there's no, we're not going to be able to make our society or civilization better with bullets and swords. That's not going to work.
No, but
We
you
have
can
to
do.
build what we're going to have in the future together with positivity, family, community, cultural generation, that kind of thing.
But that's why we can do passive resistance, such as you do. Like minimize your own cost, minimize your reliance on the government. Have a big family. Have
And
a family
optimize your
connections.
family holdings with land
Yes.
and farm animals and things like
Yes.
that. Yeah.
Things that can't be easily taken away from you, because having like, oh, but I have $10 million in the bank, gone. Like
Yeah.
that, it's nothing. But land, as you say, or maybe
Yeah.
farms, it's harder.
Between the older family I have and the 25 of us that are younger than our parents, we own around 200 acres of good land.
Oof.
And we currently own about 18 homes. And we know each other. Our friends and family live here. We know other family clans that also live here and have been into farming this area for 100 years like my family. So even if the government decided to cut us off from the internet, we have all of our land and food and water that we need. We have natural springs, natural creeks, lakes. We have our own chickens, our own pigs, our own cows. I mean, if the government disappeared and the US dollar was worth nothing tomorrow, my life would change, but I would still have food and friends and family. So
like I just got memories in my head there. Like I think the issue with modernity is that people got used to something new. So you're saying that, oh, I had a lot of chickens, like that's amazing.
Mhm.
But people gave up that in the past for like, oh, but we are now rich. No, economy goes. I can move to city. I can do this. I can do that. I can sell off the chickens. Why do I need chickens? Why do I need to care for chickens? They sell off actual worthwhile possessions for what they deem to be wealth, but isn't.
yeah.
Like-
I think that's why the people who are left here now, they're all the smart ones. Because the ones who wanted an easy life or to not live like the Appalachians, they sold off their family. They sold off their family farms to us. So we got to buy it all up. So
it's so insane. So it's again another memory. There's in the south here where I am in Sweden. There are multiple noble families. Been there 500 years, 600 years, 700 years. They're usually even Danish, and they have big possessions, big holdings. And I always had kings coming over in the past. So in the past, they were like somebody like went to one of the castles and they have like Kaiser Wilhelm II came to visit to do some boar hunting. And so I got like, oh wow, like so much rich history, so much instrument, so much land. What a lot of these noblemen, not they're noble, but meaning older noblemen, like they're in their 70s and 80s now, the people who are all noble. What are they doing? Well, they're selling off their possessions. They're selling off their lands. Why? Well, one of the big ones in the south there, selling off his land because his children doesn't really want to take care of it. They don't really want the land. So they're selling it for quick bucks. You might get a few millions for a big chunk of land.
but then their family holdings are gone.
Yes, yeah. But they'll still think, oh, well, we still have family holding because we're not going to sell the castle. We're not going to sell this part of land. You have been there for 500 years, over there 600 years maybe, and you're selling it off quick money now. What's wrong with you? Well, they want to live in a big apartment in New York City. They want to, the condo in London doesn't pay for itself.
I don't measure, like, around here, money matters, of course, because that's how economy is. But my family and the people that live here, we don't really measure wealth the same way that like city folk do.
Yeah.
Like, wealth here is your family, your station among others, how well you upkeep your farmland, how well you upkeep your houses so they don't look like crap. Like, it's a Hollywood fiction that hillbillies like us all have ugly rundown houses. That ain't true at all.
Oh, no.
Because around here, it's a status symbol to have a well-kept farm and house and look good.
Nice.
Because it's like, oh, I got enough money to look good and wear a nice suit to church every Sunday. And look at my house. I buy my wife the nicest stuff, and we have the nicest front of our house, and we have the prettiest horses and the prettiest cows. Like, around here, it's a very beautiful, wonderful place to live, and things are not ran down and crappy. That's what happens in the cities. Everything looks run down and shitty in cities. But around here, everything's beautiful and well kept, and people are happy and healthy and talk to each other and wear nice clothes. And when I go to cities in America, it's the opposite of that.
Yeah. No, it's interesting. So I haven't made the video, but I'm going to do it in the future. But it's a hell of a topic. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to, I did a video on the Finnish Golden Age, talk a lot of lectures with that, fascinating stuff. But I wanted to do one on the Danish Golden Age, which is, what is it, 1910s to 1962, something like that. No, sorry, 1810s to 1862. It's after the Napoleonic War. So what happened was, simply, Napoleonic Wars happened. Denmark was neutral. They were part of League of Neutrals, like with Russia, meaning this is not our war. But, Napoleon had a love relationship with Alexander I, the Tsar of Russia. And the continental trade happened, and Napoleon got angry at Alexander and invaded Russia. When that happened, England was very afraid that he might win, that Napoleon might win. If Napoleon wins, takes Russia, that's it. The English lost. So what did they do? Well, they need to make sure they can control the Baltic trade, the Baltic Sea. So they bombed Copenhagen. They invaded it twice. Once a little bit before they destroyed their navy, making sure that they didn't have any naval power. And then they start bombing the city to make sure that they're out of the war completely. So 1/3 of the city was destroyed, which is horrible. But the lucky thing with it was they went bankrupt. They had to sell off a lot of their, Norway became part of Sweden, things like that. The king lost a lot of power. Something called Folketing, like the parliamentary system, started to pump up. A lot of merchants came along, but they cared. So there were merchants and priests, creating actually a very specific Danish culture, very much focused on literature, very much focused in storytelling. The Danes are really good storytellers, and they built up Copenhagen again, and they said, we want this city to be beautiful. It had its issues before, but now it's going to be beautiful. So the merchants came along, gave a lot of money to architects, and they built up the city. Like, gorgeous during that period. Gorgeous. Like, everybody was sort of working together in really well. And in the golden, if you even wonder why the golden era ended, it was more or less the war with Prussia. So they had a war previously with Prussia that Prussia started because they wanted the southern lands of Denmark. And Prussia lost, not militarily, but diplomatically. But the second time around, they didn't lose. And the Danes were actually the ones invading Prussia. They were cocky. So what the story is very funny. It was actually a schizophrenic priest who convinced both the king and the parliament to invade. Like, he was in the psych ward and everything, but he was such a good rhetorical speaker. There's a series about it, like really, really good speaker. And everybody was like, yes, we are the greatest. Started the war with Russia and Germany, and just got beaten.
I never heard that before. That's interesting.
And it was actually one of the more important wars for Otto von Bismarck. to unify all of Germany, because Denmark during the time was one of the strongest army, more on paper, but they were a very strong naval power and army. And to beat them would demonstrate that Prussia, meaning Germany, also is a strong power that needs to be like has a reason to be in the world, more or less. So that led to the unification of Germany as well. Interesting. So you think now all this beautiful stuff, all these buildings, all these things, they're still there in Copenhagen. But the issue with Copenhagen is now the priestly class, the cultural class, kind of little by little got lesser. The merchants are still there. The king is still there, meaning the warrior caste. The king is still there. So you see the palace and everything, but the history is kind of gone from Copenhagen. So, for example, I went there to see if I could find out the history of the buildings. There's no placard. There's nothing telling about the history. There's no explaining of this history. The only thing Copenhagen is now is literally what the name entails. It's a trading port. That's the name, trading port.
Yeah.
And it's just soulless. It's all for profit. Yeah, it's really sad. So I wanted to talk about this, but it was really hard to talk about because it's there, but it's also dead. So it's like I'm watching a dead carcass in front of me. Like, how do I explain it? And I did multiple explanations for it, but I got an explanation from she studies history. She's more of a feminist, but she was honest with the question, with the answer. She said it's the focus on feminine history.
Okay.
She said previously, your prestige was shown by military might, land, conquest, more masculine things, even music, bombastic music. Well, that's where prestige was shown. But the focus have changed to more feminine focus, prestige calculator, meaning how well does your people do? How are they fed? Like all of these things. So a lot of the prestigious things, such as the buildings, are not focused anymore because that's not important. It's like, oh, does everybody has housing? Yeah, that is important, but it's like it's just the material.
I see. Okay.
And she even said, like, might be one big reason why a lot of things are being moved away from that era is because the merchants were very anti-woman. They actually decreased the power that women had. So it's like, then we don't want to talk about it because women are now the focus. So we got to remove history to fit the progressive narrative.
That never ends well.
No, it doesn't.
Well, let's steer the conversation back to ethnogenesis and paganism. Your trip to Lithuania was a beautiful time, and I know there were some bad parts, but you had a very beautiful experience there. And I'd like to talk to you about ethnogenesis and paganism. When it comes to non-Christian religion being part of older identities, the paganistic things that you got to experience and that the people there shared with you, were they a modern recreation of things that had been lost?
Yes. So this is something I should have explained previously as well, but very good that you came into that. Very good. So there are pagans since long before. Like it's an academic thing if there still are pagans or not pagans. But yeah, there are still ancient pagans of sorts still there, but they were never organized. Same thing in northern Scandinavia. They're still pagans, but they're not organized. They're more culturally pagan, because for them it's not about the organization. It's something they are. It's just you don't care too much about it. It's just that the church doesn't have much power.
The question I was getting at.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
So then in the 1920s, there was also a recreation of all pagan things. So there was a priest who wrote down the rituals. So they take from that priest scriptures and what he wrote about paganism, and they try to recreate it.
Okay.
So that's in the 1920s. But when the Soviets took over, that organization actually died.
Okay.
But in the 1970s, it was started by a man named is it Jonas Synkunas? Yeah, it's Jonas Synkunas, which was also a pagan from back in the day, but he wanted to restart it. And Remover became a very political organization, very anti-Soviet organization. It's rebellious in its ways.
Understandable given what happened.
Mm-hmm. And till this day, it's still colored with the political anti-Bolshevik, and sort of like anti-Muslims. But it was kind of funny when he died in 2014, the guy who created it, there was a lot more people than is today, but a lot of them were left-wing. But when he died, and there was power struggle, a lot of the left-wingers started leaving because they saw they wanted the gatekept, actually, and they lost the power to gatekeep. A lot more right-wingers came in, and it was all politics for them. All politics. This entire thing was politics. It was not about spirituality. It was not about paganism. It was about cultural, like political control. Which ties into actually something we're going to talk about in the next video I'm doing as well with
the German one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No, this is not the next video. So I'm going to go next year, hopefully, to Germany to talk to German pagans.
I meant your next trip.
Yes,
that's your next big trip is to go and study the things we talked about privately in Germany, right?
And they have the same issue there. So there is no one organized German, not Germanic, just German pagan group.
Right.
Germanic groups, it's Iceland everywhere, and it is an American Germanic pagan group. They're Odinists, but I'm talking about Germany. The interesting thing is like, okay, so what pagans do you have in Germany? Well, you have the pagan anti-fascists and Democrats, like democratic. That's it. The pagan group like that's pretty much it. It's not about paganism; it's about political control.
That's sad.
So there's while researching this Fidus character, he was also part of something called GGG, like it was a pagan group started in 1910s or something like that by poets. So the same story as the Remover Lithuanians. It was interesting. We joined that, and that also died out, as things do. The Nazis also co-opted a lot of pagan groups, which wasn't good. So even after World War II, there were a lot of Nazi pagan groups. But so it became political. Again, it's either too far right-wing or too far left-wing. It's all political. It shouldn't be. It's a spiritual thing. It's a religious thing. But there were groups that were not political. We just did it for spiritual things. The issue is, if you do that, regardless, the anti-fascist pagans are going to destroy you. Because you have to be anti-fascist. And if you're not anti-fascist...
that type of person has been destroying everything in America for the last 80 years. So I understand. So let me ask you then about the paganism that you experienced. Because the few pagan friends I've made in America, the way they've likened it to me is because of wars and because of the dominance and the oppression of the Abrahamic faiths.
Yep.
It's very difficult for any pagan group to have practices and rituals that go back a long time, because since it's not an organized, centralized thing like Catholicism, it's a small ethnic clustered thing that people just sort of share and do familially and in their community.
Yep.
So the pagans that you got to experience in Lithuania, the way that they practice and what they share is like an homage to the things they do know that were true in the past.
Yes.
And then they're letting their ethnic biospirit fill in the gaps. That's sort of how it works.
Yes.
Okay.
So
that's a beautiful thing. I wish that religion here was more like that.
They had the text, but because most pagan group back and there was all verbal. Same thing with Druids in England and things like that. It's verbal. But luckily the priest, not always was Christianity, obviously anti-pagan, whatever, but luckily they did write down things. So most of the main priests are also what's called folklorists. They go in academically and study old scripts to see if there is a correlation between what we know and what is written. So they always try to do as honest of interpretation of the past as they can, but it's hard. And they do fill in the gaps because you have to, but they try not to. They try to be as genuine as possible. But it's about them in the end of the day. It's not like, even if you can talk about 1,000 years ago, the pagans then, it's like, oh, they did it this way. The thing is, it's still them. It's still Lithuanians. It's their ancestors. So as long as you at least, try to find the essence of your ancestors, you're going to do something correct.
Yeah.
And that's the
one of the things that I don't like about modern Christianity, or even Christianity going back hundreds of years now, is when the religious practices and the spiritual pursuit for truth and metaphysical connection to nature and family, when that becomes a big centralized thing, or if not centralized, a big powerful organization, it can't help but be political and seek power
100%.
like a war machine. And that's one of the things that's always rubbed me wrong about Christianity, is there's not really any flexibility within it as an entity for us to be allowed ethnic metaphysics. And I've never liked that about Christianity. I don't like that, because it's like you have people that try to do their own thing with Christianity, but they're not really honored or accepted. And oftentimes they're even called heretical.
Yes.
So I guess you take the good with the bad. Like with having a big entity, you can have solidarity and protection, but then you also lose a lot of the heart of spiritual exploration and spiritual meaning. So it's being a pagan admirer, though I'm not a pagan myself, and being raised.
I'm not a pagan myself either.
Okay.
I'm also an admirer.
Being raised Christian and heavily steeped in all the Christian stuff here in Appalachia, I have a strong ethnic connection to the type of Christianity I know because of how powerful and meaningful my ethnicity is. But at the same time, I kind of wish we weren't Christian. I kind of wish we were more like the Lithuanians you went to visit, because I feel like that would suit us better here. But that's looking at things a little too pragmatically, I guess. But I do think that I look at the pagan stuff with sort of a hopeful, like romantic spirit, because I would like my people to be more in tune with like natural metaphysics than like the Bible and the papacy. I just feel like I would enjoy that, and that would behoove my people better.
Yeah, 100%.
Does that make sense to you with what you
100%? I understand.
Okay.
And a lot of the like being there is like you get that feeling. It's an amazing feeling, like going like Christianity has its amazing things, but it's like going back in the nature and history. It's like it is amazing, and it is sad that people don't have it as much. I mean, people try. Like we have different rituals within Christianity. In Sweden, we fire up a big flame on spring to welcome the spring in and hunt away the witches.
Yeah.
So we try to do our things, but as you said, it's like the balance between a more universal church and cultural things is always hard.
It's difficult, because like we talked about before the stream, there are good and bad things culturally about different approaches to how you're going to have metaphysical meaning and how you're going to seek it. And it's just, that's one of the things that interests me about paganistic practices and the ethnogenesis of different European clusters, is because that's sort of where I feel like I'm at as an Appalachian here in America. Is
good.
You've got the big church and you got the big government. And then you have people that are influenced by those and help build those over the last few hundred years. And I see the good in both the government and in the church. Yeah. But as entities, I see them as kind of negative now. And I wish that there was a departure from them as big political entities, moving more towards the small level of your home, your community, your family. And it's a difficult thing to have a conviction about, because I see value in both being bigger and stronger and being more micronized and individual and private with metaphysics. Because I see both sides having value for having power to resist outsiders. But also when you have that bigger tent, it's a lot easier for it to sort of lose what makes it special.
Yeah, no, I fully agree. Like we have the Swedish church that is like back in the day, 120 years ago, it was massive. Like you couldn't be a Swedish citizen if you weren't a member of the church. You couldn't
Wow.
be any you couldn't be any other religion and be a member of the state, meaning a nationality. Like you couldn't be Swedish and be Catholic, for example. And the church had all of that power up till 1914. I am, in a sense, like I'm thinking, like in a sense, was it good or bad that the church was that big? I mean, it wasn't good either. But I'm also thinking it's very good that it isn't anymore, because what happened it was in 1940s, end of World War II. Like the Lutheran Church, like when I say Lutheranism, what do you think? You usually think today progressive things, right?
Well, when I hear Lutheranism, I think of, since my mother's husband is a Lutheran. He's not from Appalachia. He's from the Great Lakes area up in Minnesota, where the Germans and the Swedish.
Yeah, is he Swede or German? Exactly.
Yeah, his family was mostly German, and but many of the people that we know through family connections in Minnesota and Wisconsin, they are of Swedish origin.
Nice.
And they're all Lutheran. So to me, I view Lutheran from my experience with it as sort of Catholic light or zero calorie Catholic.
It is Catholic light,
because it's very Catholic in practice, though metaphysically they believe in the Protestant version of Christianity, not the Catholic version. So
yes, solely in script, like by scripture alone, meaning not through works, like the Catholic, because the Catholic you gotta work for it, but through scripture you can find salvation. Is that entire idea of it. But the thing is with the Lutherans, like if you go back to the 60s or 50s, when you say Lutheran, you think conservative, like very hard right conservative. But when you say Lutheran today, you think gay priests,
much different animal
female
today.
priests, progressivism.
Yeah.
So what happened was I kind of learned it recently per se, but I mean I was directed with the Swedish church because I grew up in the Swedish church. I'm still a member of it because majority of Swedes are members of the church. There's still something there. But what happened was that they allowed female priests. It was so like, oh yeah, let's do that. Okay.
That would never fly around here. That's not how things are done here.
Okay, but then the question became, well, is there any scripture that talks about females even allowing to be priests? No. But you're going to do it, or else we will fire you. That's what happened. So usually priests were also lecturers in university. Like because I studied religion in university, I'm with the priests.
Okay.
I was second, but like Uppsala, north of Stockholm is the biggest religious center, but down here is also one big religious center. I went to that and befriended priests. Priests have lectured and taught the priests of tomorrow a lot of things, but the thing is, they are very conservative, but they were not allowed to be as conservative when they were teaching. They had to teach that women were allowed to be priests, even if they didn't believe it, because they lost their job if they didn't.
And this is why I say that I don't like it when church becomes so big it becomes like government, because that shit happens.
Oh no, they've always been. The issue, so it's like, okay, they accepted it. They couldn't do much. It was like either you do it or you get fired, which is forced. They forcefully put it in, not through scripture, and it's not in scripture, but they forcefully do it. And now 50% of the church, of the priests in Sweden, are female. And what's the issue? Well, again, the church become very feminized. In one church in Malmö, the third biggest city here, you walk in, you see in the counter, you see a trans flag. Like how do you find that in scripture? Like you're through scripture alone, meaning through the book, you can find salvation. Where do you find this?
It's really sad how subverted and evil everything has become. Sad. Well, let's not end on a sour note.
No.
Let's talk more about the positive things that you got to witness and experience about the pagan rituals and practices with the people you went to visit in Lithuania. If there's one thing that metaphysically or spiritually stood out to you with what you witnessed, what is it, and describe it for us?
Okay, like I got a big revelation, an understanding when I went there, and it's again, there's always a saying like people haven't changed much. No, like ancestral people are as smart as we are. They just have different technology. But I always say that throughout my life because I always grasped it. But to grasp it in a spiritual sense, I got that there. It's like I understood why certain things a certain way, because they're very smart people back in the day exactly knew how to do. Why are certain religious practices a certain way like why are certain structures the way that they are? It's because very smart people put it in place to keep people going, to keep civilization going.
Many thousands of years ago.
Like, and it's always been this struggle. But smarter people have usually prevailed. And this is why we're here today. This is why we can survive today. Because people who are smart have struggled and fought for something. And if you see, this is usually called pattern recognition, but if you see something good, like, and need people to like fight for it, like especially if it's something being destroyed. Now, when I say that, it's very hard because dumb people, are going to say, well, then we need to remove all animals suffering and fight for the environment, because in their mind, that's what they see.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's not a lot of people can actually see things for what they actually are, for things that are actually being destructive. And you need to fight the people who are actively trying to destroy you.
Yeah.
And throughout history, there has been destructive people, but people have been fighting for it and building up things, rituals, ways, forms that we follow today that fights it. And we have to make sure it doesn't erode. I think that's why so many of
the Marxists and the communists, the first thing they tried to take apart was the family and the relationship of parents to children, because that is how that kind of generationally improved social intelligence is shared, is family to children. And if they can break that bond, then there won't be any resistance to the Marxist takeover.
Yeah, I like someone wrote, wisdom was allowed to prevail. Yeah, it was. And they found ways to make sure that wisdom was kept spreading. Again, Appalachia, like what, like I saw recently, I mean, you have to correct me if I'm wrong, but one way to tell a story or to tell a warning to the next generation is through storytelling.
Yeah.
That's a big thing for your people.
And that's why fairy tales of Europe were always scary and dark, is to teach people a lesson.
Yes, absolutely. Like we have stories from back, like the school I went to, I'm now doxing myself a little bit. Doxing for if people are smart enough to find, but it was actually based upon a story about a horse in the lake. So if you go near the lake, the horse will come up and grab you and drag you down the lake. Now, why the hell did it, like, there's no horse in the lake. Obviously, there's no horse jumping out. What's the point? Well, the point is to scare small children to make sure not to go close to the lake, because they might fall in and drown. But again, all these stories, they have a reason of being there. It's a way of telling generational stories, like generational.
It's a way of imparting wisdom to young people so they grow up wise and smart. Right.
Precisely. Yeah. Very well said. Very well said.
Well, we're coming to the end of the stream. Is there anything that you would like to ask me, or is there anything we haven't covered yet you'd like to talk about before we say our goodbyes today?
We can talk another hour easily.
Oh, I could talk
No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But I mean, things. No,
I enjoy talking to you every time we speak. I have a good time talking to you.
So, do you know when your people, like your ancestry, went to Americas, went to Appalachia?
Not exactly, no, but I do know that on my father's side of the family, his English ancestors were here in the 1700s in North Carolina and Virginia area, and they were the first ones that started codifying and making the towns that would become Eastern Tennessee today. Nice. So my lineage goes back to Jonesboro, Tennessee in the 1700s on my father's side. My mother's side were from the Ulster Scots, who owned farmland in Virginia. And they were the ones that came here in the early 1800s and started setting up the farmlands in the two primary valleys of eastern Tennessee, Goshen Valley and Carter's Valley. And my husband is of the Carter's Valley Carters, and he, of course, is English, having the name Carter. But our ancestry goes all the way back to the 1700s and 1800s there. But because of how things are and because of how so many people just don't care about lineage, it's difficult to track much farther than that for our families. And most of our family knowledge only goes back to the late 1800s. So I can't trace much of my family back beyond 1840, 1830. And the bulk of the names that we have are from like 1885 forward.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's just amazing.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's that amazing because a lot of the people where I live can do that because we're
okay.
still,
Yeah, but it's like compare yourself to like a person in the big cities.
and to be fair, most
That's
Americans
amazing.
aren't like that either. Like even most rural Americans don't have family lines of conquerors and farmers and explorers that settled and created the very houses and land that I still live on now 200 years later. Most people in America don't have that kind of story. Some of the people I talk to in New England, like in Maine and Vermont and Connecticut, there are still little clusters of original settler families that have over generational time, built up vineyards and built up whatever you call the that kind of thing on the sea, like the seaside manor estate. Like there are a lot of people up in New England that can trace their family lineage back 200 and 300 years easily, but most people in America can't. So
yeah, but I mean, I'm also thinking with America, it's fine in a sense because some people went there to flee, like away from family history,
true,
to create a new history, and that's important also. It's okay. Like sometimes something new comes along. The Mormons example, like they can trace very much who they are because with that they can create a new history. But not everybody went westwards cared as issue. Like they went, they got land, and then their grandchildren just
But that's a common trope in a lot of American families and American fiction is I'm separating from my country or my family or my religion, and I'm going to America to head west and start fresh. And so many of the people that created the founding stock of America were like that. They cut ties to everything and were like full on Faustian spirit. We're going to go and make our own way. And so you see a lot of people with that energy still today, but And again, that doesn't mean that they are a lesser person because they can't trace their family history. I know a lot of great Americans here that I think are stand-up, powerful people and good-natured people that can't trace their family line. So I don't look down on someone who can't. It's just not a common thing in America.
And the thing is, like, that's fine because you need to also think when you say Europe, you don't romanticize history all too much. For some, it was hell, like poverty.
I mean, you take the good with the bad. Like it's.
Yeah, again, I mean, a big reason why a lot of people went to America, famines. They were nobodies. But when they went to America, they could become somebodies. They could become new. They can rewrite their own history.
And most importantly, they could be in control of their own family's fate by growing their own food, building their own homes, that kind of thing. So
yeah, we had, again, our governments back in the day were very much controlling usually. So a lot of the people who went to America was tired of church control. Particular church control, but also state oversight, because they oftentimes didn't even own the land. So it's like, well, if you go to America, you can own your land. You can't in Europe. So I mean, and I'm all for it is the Faustian spirit. Crossing the river is part of the European thing to be.
Yeah.
Like especially the English. It's we don't know what's over there, but it might be something over there. Let's take a boat. And then that became the first English. For example. But it's always this like pushing better and better and better, trying. But the issue is sometimes it starts to decay. And right now it's in a bit of a decay. But it doesn't mean that the Faustian spirit can't be again. And it will come again.
And I think it will. And like we talked about before, it's important for anyone who's listening now to know that if you care about the future and you don't like how negative modern day is for whatever reason, you should invest yourself in a community and a family that that is actually generating positivity and generating people. Go somewhere where you can be invested in a religion that you like, with people who are like you, and build the future that will come. Because look at the evil monsters in control now. All they do is destroy. They don't create anything.
No,
We
it's
can
true.
create. We can make culture and church and family and farms and technology. Because with as good as micro technology is now, maybe the future will literally be people like us making our own computers in our garage. We don't know. So it's just do everything you can to invest yourself in positive, small life, ethnic expressions, religious expressions that you can personally be a part of. And of course, if you care about the future a lot, make a lot of children too and raise them right.
But the interesting thing about, if you don't die of nuclear holocaust in like
Right.
5 years, like smaller decisions you do today, in 100 years from now, can like grow very big. Like again, just I always thought about the naked men in Germany in 1890. A few naked men in Germany went to America, and then they became the biggest
Yeah. And then
movement.
many decades later, after that man's death, but it started a big movement, right?
Yeah. No, for example, I mean, this is known. In the peace sign, for example, that's a German rune.
Oh, okay.
And that's by it's actually by Fidus, the artist himself, that started drawing it. But the Germans, immigrants who came there with Lebensreform, used that, and then they reformed it into a peace sign.
Oh, okay. So that's where that comes from then. I never knew that. All right.
And I think the rune is like on ADL side of like hate crime. It's like
everything's hateful.
No. The funny thing is like so you're telling me the hippies are the real Nazis? Okay.
yeah. The hippies are the real Nazis. That's it. Yeah. Well, anyway, we've come to the end of the stream. Let's go ahead and check for community engagements before we say our goodbyes. Let me tab through here and see if we have anything. I'll refresh there. We'll refresh PayPal. I'll check on Cash App as well. We don't have anything on Rumble and Odyssey because I checked there a little earlier. And we don't have anything on Cash App, but we do have something over on Entropy.
Ooh.
Over on Entropy for $5 from our friend Kizza. Kizza's been a longtime friend and financial supporter of the channel.
I think I've talked to him.
For $5, he says, "Evening all. How is everyone doing today? Yes, I have a big white pill Christmas present for you. We need to do another Colonist and a Brit Get Along episode as it's been a long time and we have much to catch up on. Merry Christmas to all from your king." Well, thank you, King Kizza. I appreciate that. I thought that might be a question for Pomen, but no question for Pomen. He's just telling me Merry Christmas and saying that we need to do another stream together. We will get to that, but like I told you, I'm doing 2 full-time streams a week now, and I'm also trying to squeeze in streams like this with him when I can. So we'll get together and do what we can as both of our work schedules allow, Kizza. Now, he did mention, let's see, he has a big white pill Christmas present.
Says check Telegram.
Usually what he means when he says that is he likes to share pictures of his. He has a new niece. I'll go ahead and show.
Okay.
Give me just a moment, and I will tab back over here. And we will look at the pictures of his beautiful new niece that just came into the world. There it is. Okay, if I can just pull that back open. There it goes.
Oh, I got a question. Nice. Oh,
isn't that beautiful? Let's see. He says that her name is Mia. Is that right? Yeah, Mia. Oh, look at that.
The baby.
Yes. More white babies, please. All right.
Someone wrote to me on the chat because the chat has been very active on YouTube.
Yeah, I've noticed that. Yeah.
If
there's any questions you would like to address from the chat, feel free. Go ahead.
Yes, I've not read much because I've been trying to focus on this. But yeah, no, I see it very active. It says, do you celebrate Yule? Like the old Norse way now. No one really does that anymore. But Yule, as in like Scandinavian, just Christmas, like our own version of Christmas, absolutely. Like we like again we call it Jul in Sweden, Jul. It's come from Jul. It's the same word more or less, but okay. Christmas, like the Christian Christmas, and pagan mingled in here together quite a lot.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I know the history of Christmas pretty well. It's very heavily steeped in pagan stuff. I know.
I got, is Santa real? Yeah, 100% Santa's real. Who else be
Hey,
giving you
I'm wearing the
presents?
hat.
Yeah, that's right. Because Santa's working right. Yeah,
Team Santa over here.
yeah, that's right. No, like I mean, if Santa's not real, how am I getting Christmas presents? You know, you know.
Well, I've had a wonderful talk with you today. Is there anything else in the chat you want to address, or are we going to wrap it up?
I think we can wrap it up now.
Okay. Well, you're always welcome to come back again. I love talking to you. I'm very interested in the content you make. I watch at least half of all of your content. It's very good. And I highly encourage you guys to go check out some of his videos. He's had videos for years, and there's a lot of interesting stuff on his channel. Go check him out. And this is my last stream before Christmas break. So, no, I do have Empire of Lies Thursday. I always forget that. Empire of Lies 2 days from now at 6 p.m. Eastern will be my last stream before my Christmas vacation, before I'm gone for the rest of the year. So you can see me Thursday evening, but then after that, I am out and I will have a little Christmas vacation of my own.
Nice.
Pomen, again, thank you for being here today, and we will do it again soon. Any parting words you have for the listeners?
I mean, thank you for listening. There's been quite a lot of people listening, actually.
Mhm.
I'm very happy.
We peaked at around 60 today.
Yeah,
So not
that's
bad.
good. No, that's really good. No, I wish everybody a Merry Christmas and Merry Saturnalia as well. It's happening right now.
Yeah. Happy Saturnalia, Merry Christmas, glad Yule. Even though me and my family are Christians, we do not disparage those who have good moral fiber and are of different religions. We believe that that's a very ugly way to be, so we're not that way. And I wish everyone a merry holiday of whatever it is you and your family celebrate. Thank you very much. So, Pomen, I hope you have a wonderful New Year's, and we'll speak again soon.
Oh, yeah, I look forward to New Year's.
All right. Well, we're going to wrap it up then. Take care, everyone. We'll see you next time. Good night.
Bye-bye.